Alright, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the Raptor, and I'm going to be installing a BuiltRight Dash Mount and setting it up for a wireless charger for my phone. I've gone through a couple iterations of how I've set this up, and basically because of the heat I wanted to make sure that it was hard mounted and not use some sort of sticky thing like I've done in the past. My previous attempts didn't really work out too well, so I decided to go ahead and purchase the dash mount in order to make sure that it was securely mounted on the dash. And I actually did this last year, and it's been so long that I've gotten a new phone and a new type of charging mount. So let's go ahead and get into the actual install and how I put this together. Alright, so the whole BuiltRight Dash Mount fits into this upper tray in your center console. The first thing you need to do is go ahead and pry off the speaker cover. They're just held in with plastic clips, so you can pull them right off. Next thing you're going to do is remove the two screws that hold in this upper tray, and it's two 8mm screws, so you can just use a socket and ratchet to pull those out. The rest of the tray is just pressure fit in with those clips, so you can just pull up on it and pop it out. Don't be afraid to give it a good tug. Whenever you pull it out, don't rip too hard though, because the speaker is wired in, so you have to unclip the speaker once you do that. Those screws that hold it in have some clips that mount into the back of the dash, so be careful, don't lose those, don't drop them into the dash, otherwise you'll have to go find some new ones. The BuiltRight Dash Mount does have really good directions, and it's not hard to install at all. You just mark the locations of where you need to drill the holes and you drill them out. Make sure that you remove that rubber tray because it won't work too well. You can cut around the tray if you really want to put it back in there, but I wanted to just keep the tray intact in the event that I wanted to uninstall this for some reason. You will need to cut out the template just because you won't be able to mark the forward holes inside of that tray. So I had to cut the template out, drill some holes in the template, line everything up, and then mark where I needed to drill on the actual upper tray itself. Once you've got everything lined up and marked, I did a couple pilot holes. I basically just stepped it up all the way until the appropriate hole size for the bolts. I wanted to make sure that there was as little deviation as possible, otherwise you'd be drilling very large holes inside this plastic piece, and I didn't want to waste it. I did get the dash mount with this optional brace that goes on the bottom. I thought somehow it might assist with the strength of the unit. Honestly, I don't really think it's worth it. I don't think that there was a really good point to having this. The tray itself isn't going to flex, the plastic isn't going to flex, there's no reason to have this additional brace. And it doesn't help with stability inside, again, because the only things holding this upper tray in are going to be those two screws in the back and then the plastic clips that press down into the top of the dash. So the tops of these bolts are going to be Allen key. For the rear ones, I ended up having to use actual Allen keys to do it, and then tighten it down with a socket from the rear. So that's basically it for the install of the dash mount itself. I know that you can purchase several different types of accessories that go with the dash mount directly from the company, but none of them had options for wireless charging, or at least the type that I wanted. They also had some fairly complex mounting solutions that looked like if they weren't tight enough they would kind of come apart. So I decided to do everything myself, which involved just cutting some metal to get everything to fit. But first I wanted to get everything secure, installed, put back together before I started working on how I was going to disassemble the old phone mount and put it onto the new side. The old phone mount bracket setup that I had was bolted into a bracket that was underneath the dash. It was a huge pain to install and even more of a pain to actually take out. So that's what you're going to see me doing right here, is pulling everything apart, pulling off the vent, and getting everything undone. So I didn't just want to hard mount my phone, I also wanted to hard mount the Accessport device. This has fallen off before whenever I've just used 3M tape in the heat, and I live in Washington, it doesn't get that hot here, so you can imagine anywhere else. In order to do this, there was a hole that could be used, or that I ended up drilling in the bottom of the plastic mounting piece. So I drilled another hole inside of the vent. I wasn't terribly worried about putting this hole in there. I could always fill it with something later if I wanted to sell the vehicle, but I used a combination of 3M tape as well as a small bolt to run through there, through the vent, and secure it on the back side of the vent to make sure that everything was hard mounted and that it would never fall off. Once I got the vent back installed with the bracket mounted on there, I put together the rest of the mount, installed the access port, made sure that the wire had enough slack, and plugged everything back in. I then went ahead and removed the old wire for where I had the phone charger running and put all of the trim back together for the dash. So this next step is figuring out exactly how I'm going to mount the wireless charger to the BuiltRight Dash Mount. I basically wanted to build a very simple bracket that would bolt onto it and bolt onto the wireless charger. All I needed to do is figure out the appropriate length and cut it to size. This process wasn't perfect. I just used some scrap steel that I had lying around and marked about where I thought it needed to get cut based on where I would have to align everything and how I would have to bolt it to the BuiltRight Dash Mount. Then I just started cutting and putting stuff together. After cutting everything out, I went ahead and marked exactly where I was going to drill the holes to mount the piece of steel to the BuiltRight Dash Mount. After verifying that everything lined up, I needed to bend the bracket, and I knew that I wanted to make sure that it was bent appropriately, so I went ahead and cut a little relief strip inside of the steel so that I could bend it more easily, or at least I would make sure that it was bent on a straight line. So then I used some pliers and went ahead and bent it to the appropriate angle that I thought would work. So next I wanted to mount the phone charger ball to the actual metal bracket that I made. I already had used this before with the last bracket that I made, so I basically just marked the hole where I wanted it to go and then drilled through to make sure that I could connect it. So here I am doing the test fit of the bracket to make sure that everything lines up and it's exactly where I want it to go. Because I only use one bolt in the connection to the phone charger, I could kind of move it around and adjust it, so that wasn't a huge deal to me. The last thing that I needed to do was clean up that metal bracket that I made and then paint it so it didn't look so awkward in the center console. So here we are the next day doing the final install after I painted that steel bracket. and I just had to put everything together and then run the wire. Once everything was hard mounted, I went ahead and pulled the wire over and just tested everything to make sure that it worked and that was exactly where I wanted the charger to be. I wanted to hide the wiring so that everything was out of the way. In order to do this, I had to pull it back apart and figure out a way to run the wire behind the dash so that it was hidden. The best way that I thought of to pull the wire up and through behind the dash was just to use some steel wire, run it down, find it, and then tie it off to this power cable and pull it back up through. I was hoping to use an existing hole inside of this upper tray, but there wasn't a location to run the wire, so I ended up deciding to just drill an additional hole and run the wire through there. Cable didn't fit the first time that I tried this. If I could do it again, I probably would have used a smaller drill bit and then used the Dremel to widen it in an oval shape, which would have reduced the size of hole necessary. You don't really need a huge hole, you just need something that the cable can fit through for USB-C. So once I got the cable through and connected and made sure that it worked, all that was left is reassembly of that upper tray. Make sure that, I actually forgot here, make sure that you reconnect the speaker. Don't forget to do that. It actually makes a huge difference whenever that speaker is connected. So here I am testing the final setup and making sure that everything was where I want it, and it worked awesome. I was really happy with the placement, happy that it didn't stick out too far. Like I said, I did end up changing out the charger itself to a magnetic charger whenever I got my new phone and phone case. I didn't have to change anything for this actually, the ball was the same size. So it worked out great, and I'm still very happy after a year with the BuiltRight Dash Mount and the setup that I made. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you the next time.